I've talked about on my radio program, I do a daily show from 4 to 6 Eastern, and I've talked about on my show how Google has come out with the most horrifying patent I have ever seen. I wish every radio show in the country, every Time magazine would make it a front page story. Google wants for there to be the future home that would be completely secure and totally efficient and offer all these benefits. But what it's really about is that your every room in your house would be bugged with microphones, that it would have video cameras, that even your alarm clock would say, oh, she's setting the alarm for 8 o'clock instead of her usual 6:30. And it would send all this information, and your alarm clock would be able to tell when you fell asleep. It would literally monitor your breathing in the bed.
Oh, my goodness.
And it would send this information. Now, this is Google, and they've got the power to do it. This is a multi-billion-dollar company because they're a market research company that knows everything about us, and that's why they're rich. So they want to install this stuff in our homes so that, and guess who they want to send it to? Here's where this really kills me. They want to send it to themselves, obviously, all this data. They want to send it to law enforcement, obviously. They want to send it to marketers and corporations, of course. They want to send it to public health officials, no big surprise there. And they want to send it to academic researchers so they can study us like rats in a cage in our own homes.
Wow.
Now, nowhere in this patent is any kind of benefit for you, the individual.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. I mean, they try. They're stretching. They talk about how they're going to monitor, get this, Pete, every person who comes in your home will be identified, monitored, and reported to authorities.
Can you
Every
imagine?
person. So if there is ever an intruder, then they would know who the intruder is and you would be safe. But what this really means is that they know who's in your home. They're listening to your conversations. They know where that person's home is. They even said this will be great because after 10 p.m., if your teenagers aren't home, we'll be able to identify precisely where they are because we know everybody who's in every house. And we'll be able to tell you your teenager is down the street at the Joneses' house. Can you imagine?
And you know what's really frightening about it is it's outside of, let's call it extra constitutional, because outside of the legislative realm, as far as protecting our privacies, is we're clicking that button, agreeing to it voluntarily for commercial reasons. We're giving up our privacy protections in the Constitution to the private sector, aren't we?
That is correct. And see, this is the brilliance of 20th century tyranny. 19th century tyranny was tanks and guns and mustard gas and concentration camps. 21st century tyranny that we're living in right now is the tyranny of basically being able to convince the public through knowing so much about us. See, we reveal all of our thoughts and sentiments and psychological reactions through social media in a way that has never before been possible for the controllers of our world to understand how to manipulate us. So now they can do a manipulation. They can put something up on Fox News or CNN, and they can watch the reaction, engage, and modify the next message. So they know exactly how to manipulate us into wanting the very tools, into putting the shackles on our own ankles, into putting the surveillance cameras in our own homes, into carrying the tracking devices in our back pockets and being paranoid that we would ever leave the house without them. See, the brilliance of this is it cost Stalin an awful lot of money to figure out how to round up and kill 20 million people, and some say 100 million people in the Soviet Union in the last century. It cost Mao Zedong a ton of money in bullets to be able to just take out his opposition. It's been expensive to monitor and control people in the past. But what they've figured out now, Pete, is how to get the public to pay for the privilege of being monitored, to pay for the privilege of being controlled and surveilled. And so instead of Stalin or Mao Zedong or Hitler having to figure out a way to create a couple 100 million tracking devices and then force everybody to carry them and then have some kind of enforcement project where you have to have law enforcement following up and arresting people and putting them in jail and paying for all of that. Instead, they've come up with smartphones, ways to manipulate them to be addictive, which have been intentionally built into them to addict us, and then get us to pay them $600 a pop to have them. So not only do they not have to pay to develop the nasty technology, but they get rich in the process, and we thank them all the way to the concentration camp.
We voluntarily submit to the tyranny through the convenience of their features and benefits.
That's right. And see, when they talk about the killer app, have you heard that phrase? We got to come up with a killer app.
Yes.
They mean that literally.
Oh, my goodness.
It doesn't just mean the thing that's going to make it irresistible that you're going to have it. It's literally the killer app. And every single one of these devices, from the video games to the smartphones to the Gmail to the every one of them, has been carefully designed with an understanding of human psychology to cause you to love them, to be addicted to them, and to fight to the death if somebody tries to take it away from you. And the same thing is going to happen with the surveillance in your home.
Yeah, and this Windows 10 operating platform is not necessarily going to be limited to your desktop computer in one room. I understand they're wanting to take this operating system and put it and install it into our appliances all throughout our house so that we're completely immersed in this two-way communication system.
And this is Google's vision of the future. When I was saying your alarm clock would do all those things, I'm not kidding. They have detailed instructions for how it will happen. Google is working with appliance manufacturers right now to figure out how to build in this kind of capability so that what they're building, they're calling the Internet of Things. And we talked about it 10 years ago in our book, Spy Chips, which should be on every Liberty bookshelf because it's more relevant today than when we wrote it, that every physical object on Earth will be a bug. Every object will be bugged. You'll open your cupboard door in your kitchen, and your cupboard door will send a signal to a computer somewhere. Oh, somebody's in the kitchen. They just opened the cupboard door. You'll take your coffee cup out. Your coffee cup will have a chip. Your counter will be totally bugged. And when you set the coffee cup on the counter, I'm not making this up. This sounds insane. I've actually seen plans to do exactly this from big corporations, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, you name it, big companies are planning this. You set the coffee cup on the counter, and it immediately knows, oh, somebody's about to fill a coffee cup. And when you go over to the coffee maker and you turn it on, they'll say, oh, well, we know that only one person's home today, or we know that 6 people are home, or whatever. How much coffee are they making? How much is being consumed by each person? How many coffee cups is that pot going into? It's literally that level of detail. And they want us to put tracking devices on ourselves so they can know who's holding the coffee cup, who picked up who flipped the button on the coffee maker. And here's the thing, Pete. 10 years ago when we wrote Spy Chips, and I really want people to read it because it will open your eyes. When we wrote Spy Chips, we talked about the fact that the big challenge that all the researchers, Carnegie Mellon and IBM, all these companies, their biggest challenge was to figure out how in the world are we going to get people to voluntarily put a tracking device on their own bodies, because that's the missing component. We can get the manufacturers to put the thing in the toaster and the alarm clock. We can get the home builders to build in all this stuff, but we can't get the people to wear the trackers. And in their own home, they're not going to carry around a cell phone, darn it. When they're out mowing the lawn or when they're hopping out of the shower, they're not going to have the cell phone on them. How are we going to get them to track themselves? And believe me, we actually have a whole chapter on this, of all of their challenging different experiments to try to see what would work. What's going to be the killer app to get people to put the tracking device on themselves? And you know what? They're finding it. And it's the Fitbit. Do you know that the Fitbit, where people voluntarily pay to put a tracker on their wrist, has been the very thing that Haitian refugees in Guantanamo 20 years ago called the mark of the beast and tried to saw off.
Wow. Have you heard?
And now people are paying for it.